T minus 3, 2, 1, ignition.
What you know about this life? Just relax, baby, get high. Yeah, you're on your way to the best night ever. No top on it, no top. Out with the stars.
Hello, best night ever, Fantasy Football League. I am Cam. We're here with Andrew, and we are here to talk about our draft. Andrew and I know are some of the biggest draft nerds here, doing some mock drafts over the summer and shit like that. So, Andrew, it's a pleasure being here with you.
Yeah, no, awesome being here. Wonderful introduction. Glad we could do this for a second year. I would love to do this as a tradition.
I think
Um,
you and I are probably gonna do this even if nobody watches or we don't even show anybody. So.
exactly. And with all of our mock drafts over the summer, did you envision it panning out the way it did?
No, well, so and I'll admit something to you now is last year we were doing mock drafts and you really fucked me. Uh, After watching the video of our like draft recap when you were in the room with Bobby and you told him to draft Gabe Davis, I knew to never trust you again. So anytime we did a mock draft this year, I didn't really do what I was thinking. I kind of like tentatively. I wouldn't give you 100%.
Gotcha. No. I understand that. And funny enough, that I did that out of spite.
I know, because I drafted Cortland Sutton.
We were actually discussing a trade for Cortland Sutton, I believe, in the fifth round. And not, I mean, I didn't have anything great to offer. It was just a simple of swapping, I think, a couple spots back and then an additional like seventh rounder next year.
I wish I would have taken it.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of glad too because Cortland Sutton wasn't the best, but I did that out of spite. I really wanted him.
I know why you did it, you son of a bitch. But nonetheless, I'm very excited. I was very excited to draft. It's always tons of fun. It's an electric night every year. A couple of things I just found some interesting things just with this draft in particular. The only rounds where each team had their own pick were rounds 7, 10, 11, and 12. So I just thought it was interesting. A lot of kind of diversity and like we traded a lot. But I also found this interesting because it did seem like there were lots of draft picks traded. This was the least amount of draft picks traded in the last 4 years.
I think that alludes to the fact that I actually retained my picks and didn't just throw them away.
I think that's partly true. Yeah.
No, yeah, I see a lot of people kept a lot of their mid-tier picks, even though I wasn't one of them. The picks you mentioned, I don't see a whole lot of change-ups. I think Michael was probably the biggest change up there, not a pick in the first and second round, and just Bobby having 3 in the second. But other than that, I mean, take those 2 factors out. I mean, it's pretty easy on the trades.
Yeah, and with this one compared, so there's 15 this year, and there were 16 last year, and this is just basically any picks that were traded. In 2021, there were 20 picks. In 2020, there were 18. So it's not too far off, but it's just the least since, I think since ever. Still a decent amount, but kind of interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to go to alluding forward. I think right now we're still at a weird struggle where we don't know where to value certain draft picks.
Yeah.
Like, you go at the start of the season last year, a healthy Cooper Kupp went for 2 first-round picks. And, 4 or 5 years ago, Christian McCaffrey went for, like, I think a total of, like, 4 or 5 picks. I know Derrick Henry went for, like, 5 picks. But towards the end of the season, those players are going for, like, late 5th, 6th rounders because people aren't keeping them. So I think right now we just don't know where first-round picks lead us. And I think we're also very tentative to trade those away. Moving forward with the new rule and having all these players go back to the draft after their first year of contracts, I can see a lot of us holding on to our first round picks moving forward and maybe our second round picks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. This year, I think there's definitely a lot of good players. Like Kelsey, Chubb, Lamb are probably like the 3 best, like most notable, like expired contracts that had to go back because they couldn't be traded. But yeah, no, I think that'll make things interesting going forward, especially because a lot of these players on expired contracts they're kind of like older running backs. So
Mhm.
um, that'll be interesting. Well, okay. Let's dive in.
Yeah,
We'll
do it.
talk about first pick. For me, it was always going to be Bijan, but not picking Kelsey hurts. Just because he's so goddamn good. But Bijan was the guy, especially if I might have felt different if I would have picked a better running back. But since I had Swift, I needed to lock up a running back, and uh, Bijan was the guy.
So, say for example, you would have kept, just hypothetically, you could not have known this, but let's just say you hypothetically you kept Tony Pollard instead of DeAndre
Yeah,
Swift.
and Pollard was
Um,
fucking hurt.
yeah, that's also true. But say if you do that, was Bijan still your number one pick?
I think since it's a keeper league, yes, but it wouldn't have been necessarily as obvious because Kelsey's hard to pass up, and I think Nick Chubb is probably going to be really good this year. There's no reason
Mhm.
that he won't be. Um, but I think Bijan, yeah, just because he's a rookie. Like now, that's like running back prime basically. So and just the way it works out is I could keep him for several years in my other contracts and shit like that. So that works out pretty well. Looking at the second pick, Travis Kelsey, that seemed like a no-brainer. Like if he would have picked Nick Chubb, I wouldn't have been too shocked. But having Kelsey, especially because he has 3 second-round picks, like that's gonna be real nice. Although he did get hurt today, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sucks.
Well, barring injury, I think Bobby was in a very unique situation where a lot of those second round running backs were going to be available to him for the taking, and he could afford. And I say afford, but Travis Kelsey was
Yeah,
definitely the right choice here, regardless of whether he was injured or not. I think just a hyperextension, he'll be back full prime, if not week one, week two.
yeah,
Um, get into that ACL. Bobby in the past has been crazy in terms of taking some players early. I remember last year he surprised us with Devontae Adams at 3. That worked out for him.
yeah.
He also surprised us with the Bills in the 4th round. That kind of worked out for him as well. Or maybe that was last year, correct?
That was last year, yeah. So
Yeah.
he won. So
So
yeah, it worked out just fine.
yeah, so I think Bobby did have the luxury to take the best player available, which was Travis Kelsey, and then wait for those late second tier round backs, which he got, which we'll eventually get to. But I
Yeah,
think that was Bobby.
yep. No, and then Nick Chubb for Connor. I always kind of saw that. I think if Kenneth Walker would have, or basically if the Seahawks wouldn't have drafted Charbonnet, I think he probably goes Lamb. But I think grabbing another running back is always solid, especially Connor.
Yeah, yeah. So what I do with Connor sometimes is I'll like text him knowing his intentions, but just kind of like mess around a little bit with what he's feeling with his picks. And I always knew he was going to take Nick Chubb, and then like about a week and a half before the draft, we were talking, and then he told me he had his mind set on CD. I didn't believe it at first. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, I mean, Connor does have 2 late round seconds, I believe. Sort of. Well, he has an early
Yeah.
second. I was like, oh, I mean, I guess he could do that, but then part of me was like, Connor would never. It hurt him so much last year to take CD in the 1st round. So after the video where he pretty much did like a preseason like recap or rankings, after the way he talked about Kenneth Walker, he was going to take running back the entire way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
hmm
And then I know you were elated to get CD Lamb.
I was, yeah. I'm in a situation where, again, lack of picks and the jump off from wide receiver, at least in this draft, from I think the first 5 taken off the board to like the next 5 was a lot.
Yeah.
So if Connor would have taken CD, I would have gone Chubb, probably best player available, and then my wide receiver room wouldn't have looked that good. But no, I was really excited to get CD. I think Mike McCarthy this year will give another jump to CD's game. Do you remember last time Mike McCarthy was coaching and Aaron Rodgers was quarterback, and who the wide receiver he had in his offense? Do you remember that guy?
Back when he was coach of was Jordy Nelson?
Oh, I was thinking I was Davante Adams. I think is what it was.
Probably.
I think it was early Davante Adams, maybe. I don't know. All I
Maybe.
know is although Cowboys took a hit with losing Kellen Moore, I think CD makes the jump this year, as his only competition is really Brandon Cooks. Go Beavs. I
But
can
but
see him
you could argue CeeDee Lamb has more competition than he's ever had now that
you think
Brandon
so?
Cooks is there. Well, I mean, other than when Amari Cooper was there, but either way, I still think CeeDee Lamb's gonna be great. I mean, he's as long as the Cowboys are good and he's on the field, he's gonna be good.
I mean, I hate to say this, but Cowboys may win 12 games this year, which is weird to say, but
Yeah, they
I can
they were
definitely see
probably
that.
close to that last year, weren't they? They're pretty
Uh,
solid.
yeah,
Good
maybe.
defense.
Basically, CD Lamb's reliability comes down on Dak, and man, that relying on Dak is just
Black Kirk
tough.
Cousins.
Yes. And then looks like next pick was definitely Tony Pollard. I thought he would have gone immediately right after.
Yeah, no, that was a good pick by Finn. Going with another running back just because Jonathan Taylor's whole fucking situation sucked. I know Jacob was pissed that he didn't get Pollard, but this is a good pick by Finn. I wish he was on my team, but it is what it is.
Mhm.
Garrett Wilson from Jacob. I this is a good pick, and I people were apprehensive about Devonte Adams, and I still think he's gonna be good. Like he's getting old. It's like, and it's same deal with Cooper Cup. It's like, God, I hope his hamstring gets healed up. It's a very weird situation. But Devonte Adams, once he's on the field, it's like he's the only fucking person to throw it to. Like he's gonna be a target hog. Um,
And I would also counter on that and saying, yes, he's done it with multiple quarterbacks, but like, can Jimmy G get him the ball? I mean, it was tough watching Jimmy G play quarterback always, and he got that fat contract, and he's just the biggest question mark I think is
yeah,
quarterback. I think he's QB what like 19 or something like that in consensus, and I just don't. That uncertainty is it's crazy to say, but I think that uncertainty is what is why I would think Devonte Adams isn't like the best option there for Thomas. He's best available definitely, but
yeah,
I have a lot of uncertainty with Devonte Adams this year, and that's crazy to say, but it's just
yeah.
Jimmy G. That's all it is.
What do you think about Thomas picking Waddle after that?
So I had what I disliked was Adams in my mock. I had him dropping because of the Jimmy G uncertainty, but I think Thomas not taking a running back here was actually shocking considering who was on the board. Josh Jacobs was right there, and I thought that was luck that he fell to Thomas, and that was really shocking. But I think Thomas is seeing the trend with wide receivers. I think this is the first year we're seeing wide receivers, being taken really early in drafts. I think Justin Jefferson was like in PPR leagues, he was being taken number one overall, and when has that ever happened before? And it's been a while since a
Mm,
wide receiver taken first overall over all these running backs.
yeah, I was surprised Jacobs fell, but I actually don't disagree with it. Um, just because it's like it seems surprising that like somebody who gets so many carries out of the blue like stays that way. Like the only person I can think of who's been like that is like Derrick Henry, when it's like the Titans are Derrick Henry. Like they get him the ball all the fucking time. But maybe that'll continue. But they also didn't commit to him, so it's just a weird situation. But I still think it was the right pick for Bobby to make here in the second round. I was a little surprised Connor went with Calvin Ridley so early, but I think he just wasn't sure if someone was going to pick him yet, so he just got his guy, which I don't disagree with.
Yeah, I really wanted Ridley, and I think if I didn't take him with my second pick, I think he would definitely have not been available for another couple picks after that. I think if he
Hmm.
would have went all the way to you, that's a pick that you would like to have probably
I
with like your.
definitely would have picked him, but it's funny, and then Connor would have picked him with his other pick. So there's no chance he was getting past Connor a second time. But
Yeah.
and then Bobby drafts Ramondre Stevenson. This was the Damian Pierce trade. So he trades Damian Pierce midseason, who he didn't even need, for a second round pick to get Ramondre Stevenson as his second running back. So I think that's pretty good management. Uh,
He gets Dameon Pierce back in the third round, which we'll get to.
Yeah, exactly. I was impressed with Finley drafting Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round just because he didn't need a running back at that point. But I thought that was a really good pick, really good potential keeper, and all that jazz. Rather,
Like
yeah,
but I'm mad that he didn't fall to me.
yeah, no shit.
I was eyeing Gibbs. I was shocked. So that's another thing with Connor's Calvin Ridley pick is I thought he would go, his
I thought he'd
whole
go Gibbs.
Well, I thought it like when he was messaging me about taking CD, I was like, well, that's second round pick has Gibbs written all over it then.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, wow, Gibbs is really gonna fall to me. I was surprised that Bobby didn't take Gibbs. Ramondre can easily have a better year than Gibbs anyway. He probably will, but Gibbs, having that 2-year contract, he was there. I was excited, and because Finley took Pollard, I was like, there actually is a chance. But then he picked Gibbs and ruined.
Yeah. Gibbs in the second round makes more sense just because it gives him kind of a year of buffer. It's like I think he'll probably do well this year, but with rookie running backs, who knows?
Right.
How do you feel about drafting Najee?
So Najee sort of fell to me in all my mock drafts that I was doing. I had him going really high. I do see some improvement with the backup running back. I think his name is Warren. He's been creating a lot of hype in the offseason.
Austin
however,
Eckler 2.0?
Exactly. However, I saw he played last year too, and in those games, he actually got an increased workload. Najee Harris started running better. I just I think Pittsburgh is going to be really. Pittsburgh's going to be Pittsburgh. I think it's an improved offense. I can see, even though Najee won't have his huge workload, I can see him having more opportunities in the goal line. I think he's learning, developing chemistry with his own line. I know he hasn't really hit all those spots you want running backs to hit. You don't see him breaking out for like 40, 50-yard runs. But I think at that pick, it was maybe a reach. But at the same time, I wanted the workload security because this is my flex pick.
Yeah.
Because I saw Olave there, I saw Higgins, and I wasn't really overly impressed with those wide receivers. Again, I think I'm sleeping on T. Higgins a little too much. But who knows with Chris Olave? He could be good. He could not be good. Who knows? Keenan Allen, Mike Williams could be the number one. Even the rookie could be the number one. Who knows there? T. Higgins is always behind Jamar Chase. So I just like Najee at that position.
Well, I agree with you about T. Higgins. I'm not as high on him. He might prove me wrong, but I haven't seen it. He hasn't done that well like when Jamar Chase has been out. He's had good games, but a lot of receivers have good games. So we'll kind of see. I think that's the one area for Bobby in this round. I mean, it wasn't a bad pick by any means. I like Connor picking Olave just because he might end up being really good. I think his ceiling is really high. I don't think Derek Carr needs to be that special to get him the ball. He just has to be better than Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston with a broken back. So I think that's in the range of outcomes. For me, I struggled with who to pick at the turn here. I didn't think Aaron Jones would be here, and I figured I should go running back. I actually really struggled all weekend on when to draft quarterback. Because I knew I wanted to get somebody, but I didn't want to draft quarterbacks too early. And then I just said fuck it, so I went with Aaron Jones and Keenan Allen, just two guys who I know their roles, I guess, on their teams. Aaron Jones, I don't think he's going to get all the carries in his backfield, especially with AJ Dillon getting older, I guess. But fuck it, we'll see. I think the Packers are going to run the ball a lot, so I hope so. If Najee was there instead, I might have picked him, but I'm not as sold. I feel like it's Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler all over again. It's the exact same thing.
And look what came out of it. Melvin Gordon just got cut from a team, and Austin Eckler is
Super Bowl champion Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense why people teams still sign Melvin Gordon. It makes absolutely no sense. Ruined Javonte, ruined Eckler for years.
Yeah.
And then he was about to ruin J.K. Dobbins. I think. Didn't he sign with the Ravens? Is that
Yeah,
what it was?
he
Yeah.
did, but that was just because they didn't even have enough people to fill a practice squad. Like,
Yeah.
but
So
so as you alluded to, third round, Bobby gets Dameon Pierce back after trading him for a second round pick last year. So kudos to him. Um,
great
Devontae, yeah,
turn.
that's not bad at all. Connor gets Devontae Smith. I kind of I just saw the Devontae Smith Jalen Hurts stack coming. I wasn't sure when, but I just felt like that was somehow destined to happen. I think that should be pretty good.
Mhm.
Um, Michael picked Joe Mixon with your pick, and that was his first pick of the draft. I think that's I saw that as he's the best running back available, and a lot of people say Joe Mixon is, they're like, what's changed? Like he's now like even more the unquestioned like bell cow for the Bengals on one of the better offenses in the NFL. But I don't know. I had Joe Mixon last year, and I was just like, why are you so shitty?
Yeah, and P Ryan left for the Bears, I think, right?
Broncos.
Broncos. Okay, so yeah, now he's on the Broncos. So yeah, Joe Mixon's there. I think the uncertainty was his little off-season stint. Is that still ongoing? Correct.
I think every other summer he probably punches some female, but
Yeah. Oh, I think
but I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's any sort of disciplinary actions or anything like that.
gotcha. Okay, because that was originally what I was thinking. Not. I think Joe Mixon falling to Michael is probably best case scenario for him. Joe Mixon could have easily have been picked with either of the late second rounds to early third round picks, and then he's looking at a Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Madison situation.
Mhm.
So I thought that was good for Michael. I mean, Joe Mixon, there was weeks, he scored 8 points, 7 points, and then there was a week where he scored 54, or 55,
He
whatever it was.
he might score 50 points every week.
It,
That's his ceiling. So
yeah, that is his
that's how
ceiling.
this works.
And then you picked Watson here. What was your rationale around this pick? Because I liked Watson.
Because I had an extra third round pick and I didn't pick again until late fourth. Um, and I knew I would probably go quarterback there. I didn't really want to go quarterback yet. And I liked Christian Watson better just because I think last year was like the end of the season. He was just like a touchdown machine, like in a deep threat. And at the time of drafting, my starting lineup was filled with Cooper Kupp as well. I think Christian Watson is still a good fit and a good piece to have. I don't necessarily need him to be great all the time. It's like, but he could emerge to be awesome. That's why I picked him a little earlier than maybe should have. If I didn't have an extra pick, then obviously I wouldn't have. But I took the leap there just because I think he could be really good. Or he'll suck, and then it's whatever. Hopefully Keenan Allen stays alive. But that was the deal there.
No, no, I think Watson has a pretty high ceiling, a lot of higher ceilings than a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Like, other than DK Metcalf, I think Christian Watson has a higher ceiling than Debo Samuel, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, even DJ Moore, honestly. So as long as the Packers O line keeps Jordan Love afloat, that could be a great pick there. I know I was really high on Watson. For some reason, I thought he'd fall to me in the fourth, but then again, I was also thinking about quarterback, but we'll get to that.
That's what Jacob was hoping too.
Yeah, because Jacob's now
He was
living
pissed.
DK Metcalf here because he wanted a wide
Yeah,
receiver.
but
No,
I think
no,
DK's a good pick though. I think as far as a consolation prize.
I think eventually I'll ask Jacob about this draft because not only did he have Tony Pollard taken from him in the first round, he has Christian Watson, one of his favorite wide receivers,
Yeah.
taken right.
Oh yeah.
And then he does a pick, so now he's probably very anxious right now in the draft. So he picks DK there. I do like that pick. DK could easily, what really troubles him is those red zone targets and him just not clicking with Geno Smith. But I think that's easily fixable, especially as improving Seattle offense. I see DK Metcalf going really, really boom this season. I do like that pick, even though he probably wanted Watson.
Yeah. No, I think so too. I worry about Miles Sanders for Thomas. Just especially just because he landed on Thomas's team. I feel like there's no logic behind it, but Miles Sanders on like Michael's team, you're like, oh, he's probably gonna have a good year. Miles Sanders on Thomas's team is like he's probably gonna die and never play again.
Miles Sanders on Jacob's team is probably good because he wasn't any good last year on Jacob's team.
He was good, yeah, exactly. So
And this is full circle because didn't Thomas take Miles Sanders with the second overall pick like 3 years ago? So
I think that's right.
hello
But
again.
that's I believe that's what Thomas said was Miles Sanders in the third round is way later than I picked him last time. So I like J.K. Dobbins to Connor. Because I think it's a bench piece and it's like, hey, maybe he'll be really good and break out this year. It's like, or he'll never play again and it won't really hurt him that much.
Yeah, I think Jake Dobbins has a lot of. He's also a high ceiling kind of guy. Do I see Baltimore having Lamar run less? I say no because I think that's what makes Lamar so great is his running ability. Do they call a few less plays for Lamar? Maybe. But J.K. Dobbins is still really, really talented. That's not a bad pick on Connor's part considering what his running back.
Yeah.
He had the luxury to take one there, and he could be definitely a boost kind of a running back for his team. Not that he needs it, but
Yeah, but yeah, another bench piece really to see if it pans out. A lot of people are uh, hot and cold on Debo. I'm not super high on Debo this year. Just eh, he sucked. He sucked last year. It's like, and he's still good, but he just had 1 year that was good, and now it almost seems like a fluke year. Like when you watch him play football, he's badass, and he does a lot of awesome shit. It's like, but I think that 49ers offense just doesn't go through him. It goes
I'm
through McCaffrey in the running game.
I'm so cold on Debo. It's not even funny. I still have no idea why the Niners gave him $70 million or whatever the number was. I mean, is that all it takes is one good boom year? I know they needed him to have that year to get all those running touchdowns, all those end around reverses, and it was something the world has never seen before. But they have McCaffrey now, and they have only lost one game with McCaffrey in the lineup. It's pretty insane what he does to an offense. I think that I just think Debo's years of having you know more than six or 7 or 8 touchdowns are just over. He could be 1,000 yard receiver, but I just see the Niners having so many weapons. You have to feed Kittle, you have to feed Ayuk, you have to feed Debo, you have to feed McCaffrey, and for some reason, uh, Mike Shanahan wants to, or Shanahan wants to feed Elijah Mitchell as well. So too many mouths to feed, and back then he didn't have as many mouths to feed, and I just do not like Debo at all. I'm going to stay clear away from him.
I think Debo a little later, like if it's just kind of a flyer, but Michael's just in a position where he didn't have a lot of draft picks yet, and so I think he had to take a shot, and Debo's a shot, so we'll kind of see how it works out. Amari Cooper is a solid pick. For me, Alexander Madison was kind of the big question mark uh, of just like, who the fuck is this guy when he's a starter? Like, the Vikings offense should be decent, but just is Madison any good? It's like he's filled in and he's had some big weeks. It's like, but last year he didn't seem to do anything worthwhile. It's like, but I still think this is a solid pick. It's just, who knows?
I think Madison's going to have a great year. Just because when Dalvin Cook doesn't play, he goes off, and he's pretty much Dalvin Cook 2.0, I think, for the Vikings. I mean, their offense is always pretty solid. That's the best way to describe the Vikings is their offense is solid. And I think as long as it's solid, I think Madison can be a huge sleeper this year. Is he fourth round sleeper? No, who knows? But I know he was one of the players I liked. And if he would have fallen to me, I would have loved it. But he's not. He's really not as high as I thought he would be. I thought he would be more like a top 20 running back. I think he's going as like 24, I want to say. I'd like him in this offense a lot, even though I've only seen 4 full games with him. I just think he's Dalvin Cook 2.0.
I think he's more like the poor man's Dalvin Cook.
We'll see.
He's a cheap imitation of Dalvin Cook. That's why they were like, oh, here's $2 million or whatever. Dalvin Cook's like, fuck you. I'm legit.
I guess so. We'll have to see. I'd play him week 1, so
Uh,
we'll find out if he's the real deal.
We'll see. I am wrong a lot, so there's that. Deontay Johnson for Finn. This is an interesting one because I don't hate Deontay Johnson, but I thought that you could have drafted him much later, like round 7.
Mm-hmm.
But
George
hey,
Pickens emerging as he is.
yeah, but I think George Pickens is a big play guy. It's like he seems like a better Gabe Davis. Like, meaning there's still room for like that kind of like main target guy, and George Pickens is the big play guy who just doesn't get targeted as heavily. That might mean fewer touchdowns, but I think Deontay Johnson is still pretty good. But again, I think this is pretty early. So, but something about getting your guys, I got no problem with that. How'd you feel drafting Geno?
So, I'll go back one more step to Deontay Johnson.
Oh, sure.
Quick. Last year, I got flamed for drafting Deontay Johnson in the 4th round.
It's destiny. Someone's got to draft him in the 4th.
Yeah, so, but when Finley drafts him, he's going to go. He's going to be awesome. I remember Deontay Johnson last year, I think, almost set a record for most receptions without a touchdown. I think that's still going on. I think. I don't know, but he has to be better than last year. I mean, the only problem last year is he didn't find the end zone once, and the Steelers had a new quarterback, a new system. I think that'll work out just fine for Finley. But so I'm actually kind of shocked that all these quarterbacks were still available at my 4th pick. I think with all my mock drafts this year, I imagined the league taking quarterbacks quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But judging how this draft went, I think that our league just didn't like any of the quarterbacks available and didn't think they were worth the picks that they were. I was this may sound dumb, but I was mocking Finley taking a quarterback in the 2nd round. I was mocking you potentially to take a quarterback, and I think if Finley does take a quarterback, I think maybe your third. Can you imagine yourself taking a quarterback with your third round pick?
Oh, I had some visions of me taking quarterbacks, 2 quarterbacks in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually kind of shocked that quarterbacks lasted this long. Considering that I know there's how many quarterbacks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean, I guarantee you 4 or 5 of those guys are going to be top 10 quarterbacks, in my personal opinion. I think that's just how it works out. Last year, you see guys like Justin Fields, Tua, and Trevor Lawrence going in the 4th and 5th round, and those guys were all top 10 quarterbacks. Well, Tua when he was healthy. I'm shocked Geno fell to me.
Tua, I believe, averaged fewer or within like half a point of Jared Goff.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, around that time, and that's another thing. Jared Goff, you got Jared Goff in what round? The 6th or 7th round?
This year or last year? Nah, I don't think anybody drafted Jared Goff. I think he was a free agent.
Yeah, there you go. Free agent jumps up to a top 10 quarterback. Anyway, I really struggled with this pick, and actually, funny enough, my rationale around this pick was the Vegas odds. So I took what Vegas is over under on yards, rushing touchdowns, and passing touchdowns for all the quarterbacks, and because Vegas knows stuff that I don't know. And funny enough, the person with the most points by a little margin was Geno, and not that was my whole rationale. I see Seattle being a young group that improves. I know he was getting a lot of buzz in camp. I was getting more chemistry with the team, and I think he has a lot of people root for him as well. I was shocked with how he played last year, and I thought he warranted my 4th round pick. This could bite me in the ass. Probably more likely than not, considering that I passed on guys like Danny Dimes, Anthony Richardson, and Jared Goff, and Russell Wilson. We'll get to Russell Wilson later, but yeah. I liked the pick at the time, and I'm going to stick with it.
I like Geno. I mean, we're talking out of everyone who's available. I think Geno, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, maybe even throwing Russell Wilson, basically the same person. Like as far as like how many points they're going to score, it'll fluctuate week by week, but I think that they're all very similar. But I really wanted Anthony Richardson in the 5th. That's was my big question mark of how early is someone going to draft him, because I thought someone might just pick him up. I don't know if he will be dog shit or not. But that's also why I went double quarterback. just for a little bit of safety, is just Anthony Richardson. Hopefully he shows enough to keep him, because that's all I was looking at there. I don't know if he'll be any good. I don't even know if Joe Burrow's going to play week 1, so I might have to play them both. So we might find out early, the hard way. But I feel good about drafting him in the 5th. I was really considering drafting him in the 3rd round, so relatively I feel like it's a big win. But who knows? We'll see. That drafting 2 quarterbacks did fuck me in the tight end area. Because I really wanted.
You got the Buffalo Bills tight end.
I got Kincaid, but I feel good about Kincaid as like a player, but I don't know if he's gonna do well in fantasy early on. Rookie tight ends typically don't, so we'll see about that.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, only 6 tight ends were taken all of the draft, so there's a lot available.
It doesn't make me feel any better. They all suck. All the tight ends blow. There's.
On my bench.
I don't want Ingram. I could have had Ingram. I don't need him. Ingram, Kincaid, Freiermuth, they're all the same fucking guy. They're all the same. They're either gonna get 6 points, or maybe they go off and have a good game. But you don't know.
I did keep going quarterbacks there, and we actually kind of glossed over those 2 our picks. Michael got his Javonte Williams, and Bobby got his Cam Akers. Who knows what the Rams or the Broncos are going to be this year? Older quarterback, really old, not a good offensive line for both sides. Might be run heavy. Who knows what they're doing? I pray Javonte's good. When I traded for him, I really liked him. Melvin Gordon ruined him, and he got injured. So I hope he ends up being good for just his own sake. Cam Akers, however, he showed some light last season. Some light that I think, he's had this hype around him as being an early. He gets picked in the 2nd round, 3rd round, this year 4th round, every year of our drafts, and he's bound to have one good year. So those are the best running backs I think available. I don't think there's a running back taken like right after that until like late in the last pick of the 5th round. So
yeah.
It wasn't a whole lot of room there, and I think they both needed some spots on their bench.
Yeah, Akers is a good pick for Bobby, because Akers could just quit football tomorrow and it wouldn't really matter for Bobby's team. I mean, he's his 4th running back. Like, it just doesn't matter. It's like, or he's gonna be this year's Josh Jacobs, and it's gonna be great. It's like, and then he'll have another surplus of running backs, and then the rich get richer. But I think that was a really good pick. For whatever reason, when I was doing mock drafts, I almost always had Bobby drafting DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know necessarily why. I just always had it, and then it came true. Something about he had, like, I think he originally drafted DeAndre Hopkins or something like that. Or maybe he didn't. No. You did.
And he sucked for me, and then I traded him, and he goes off.
That sounds about right.
I had DeAndre Hopkins when Kyler Murray was going off.
Yeah.
He had the Cardinals DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. Yep. But I think that's a solid pick. Kind of like for his receivers, it's just he has Diggs and AJ Brown, so it's kind of like, who else can he get that might have a high ceiling or even just a high floor? Like, Hopkins' ceiling might not be huge, but he'll probably get 8 to 10 targets a game, just because who the fuck else are they going to throw it to?
And Titans are a huge sleeper right now. There's a lot of buzz around the Jaguars, which they could win the division, but also I think people are really doubting Mike Vrabel and this Titans team. They always find a way to just do well. And last year, with Ryan Tannehill being injured as long as he was, he's not a great quarterback. He's not like a great quarterback, but he can definitely, hit the throws when he needs to. AJ Brown was good when he was on the Titans, so who knows? Maybe DeAndre Hopkins will be the new Titans AJ Brown.
Damn.
I can definitely see Titans, winning 8 games and DeAndre Hopkins helping them do that.
Yeah. Then Connor goes to Hawkinson. Hawkinson's a good pick. I kind of thought he'd pick him earlier, but I think getting him in the 5th round is kind of a steal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, that's going to be huge for Connor. Michael goes to Jared Goff, which Michael's. I know with us we needed quarterbacks. We didn't know when Michael was going to pick quarterbacks because he always ends up with 5 or 6. So I know that was a big one, but he got his guy. Now he has like 4 Jared Goffs on his team. So it's a bold strategy. I hope it works out for him.
Well, remember he traded Jared Goff, and now he has Deshaun Watson.
Oh fuck, that's right. We'll
Yeah,
we'll talk
so
more about that later.
okay,
Um, yeah,
but yeah, use that pick to get a rapist. So
that's.
I know he likes, we now know that Michael is in favor of rapists because he is putting Deshaun Watson in his starting lineup
Well,
and like
alleged
alleged.
alleged rapist. Sex criminal.
Exactly. And if
Um,
Finley goes DJ
yeah.
Moore here, I think DJ Moore could be awesome this year. It just is really dependent on if Justin Fields improves in the passing. But it sort of feels like the Bears are still in rebuild mode, and I know they shouldn't be, but they definitely are. I mean, they traded away the first overall pick to get future picks, so they're obviously not in win now mode. If they win,
Yeah,
then good. Justin
it
Fields would be great, lead them to win the division. But to me, I just think the Bears are still feel like in a rebuild phase. So I think Justin Fields having one more weapon around him could really, really help him out. But at the same time, I don't know what DJ. I think DJ Moore's a great wide receiver. I know your feelings on DJ Moore, and I'll let you have him here in a sec. But to me, he was a huge question mark. But for Finley's sake, I think that having that stack could be huge.
I think DJ Moore. This year he sounds like Stephon Diggs when he joined the Bills. Which is, I mean, the Bills were mediocre. Like, I think they missed the playoffs that year. Or maybe they, no, I think maybe they made the playoffs. But then they get a number 1 dude, and then Josh Allen improves, their whole offense improves, Stephon Diggs goes off. DJ Moore seems like that missing piece as far as like in theory it smells like the same recipe. So I think that's the value of DJ Moore is he might help unlock that entire offense, which I think could happen. If DJ Moore would have fallen to me in the end of the 6th round, I would have picked him. Obviously, I don't think there's a scenario that would have happened, but it would have been cool. But I think that's a great pick. Drake London, I think, is interesting for Jacob because he's all the talent in the world, but he plays on the Falcons. So it's like, who knows? Will he be? Will the pass be catchable? Is really the only question. I think he'll get targets.
Have they officially named Desmond Ritter as a starter?
I think so. I haven't heard otherwise.
I mean,
Yeah.
so see, with this pick and then Michael's pick of Kyle Pitts, like I know I know how you feel about Kyle Pitts, but it's just like that's going to be a run first team, especially. I mean, they drafted Bijan for a reason. They're going to use the crap out of him, I think, and having Desmond Ritter in as his first full season, he got a couple shots, I think, last year and in the preseason. I don't think those targets will be there for either of them. He could be a more accurate thrower than Mariota, and I think he probably will be. But I just think that Kyle Pitts just needs that one quarterback that can have him be the next Travis Kelce. But at this point, I think the Falcons' offense is just going to be run heavy. So
Yeah.
do I see decreased receptions for both of them? Yes, but I also see them taking advantage of their reception and having more of a sort of booming activity with those catches.
Yeah, we'll see with Pitts. He's got all the talent in the world, and he's a great athlete, and who the fuck knows? Kyle Pitts, it's the same sort of scenario. Kyle Pitts on my team, drafted in the 2nd round, looks terrible. Or drafted in the 3rd round. But Kyle Pitts on Michael's team, drafted in the 5th round, looks a lot better. So, what are you
Yeah,
going to do? I thought Kamara was a good pick for Connor. Just somebody to stash. I think
it's a
that's,
great pick.
yeah, it's just another. We're in a bizarro world with Connor because now he has a bunch of old ass running backs instead of all of his shiny new running backs. So it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out this year. He did
Yeah,
trade Dalvin Cook, but he's still got plenty of old running backs.
I was just texting Connor the other day, and I made the case that I was like, look, Connor, next year's draft, you have like the least amount of picks you've ever had, and I think he has now 2 extra picks, and it's still the less he's
Yeah,
ever had.
that's probably
So,
right.
whatever reason, we just continually, trade Connor our picks for players that he doesn't keep, and more often than not, they just don't work out for us. So Connor always finds himself in a situation to take players like Alvin Kamara, and can afford to have him just stashed away. His force of game suspensions up, and then he comes back full force. Could be another 2016 or 2017 Alvin Kamara. So
Who knows? I
who
don't
knows?
know.
And then
All I know is DeAndre Swift is gonna have a great year. But James Conner, I think that was this. I if I had to choose, if I was drafting here, I probably would have picked Rashad White. Um, just because he's younger, and that's really the only reason. Because I think they both are on shitty teams. They're the unquestioned number one running back, and who are going to get a lot of volume. And it's just who knows. But I think both of these picks are probably the right moves. Just who knows how it's going to go, really.
I see Richard White actually could be a really, really good player this year. Tampa Bay have zero expectations. Everyone thinks they're gonna stink. Baker Mayfield's a
Yeah.
quarterback, but they still have some good O line pieces. They did lose some last year, but they still have some really good ones. Tristan Wirfs, I know, is still the left tackle over there, and whenever he's on the field, I know he's just going to be insane.
Hmm.
Rashard White, Leonard Fournette really benefited in that Buccaneers offense. I can see Rashard White being really well.
Yeah.
Um,
I really
well,
like Waller. I wanted to draft Waller, but I just waited too long. That's the fucking way she goes. Is the one pick that Jacob got over me, and then everything else was taken from him. I like Ayuk here for Connor, so I get mixed up. Connor has picks on every fucking team.
I know
Um,
it's insane.
but uh, but I think he's an interesting one on to get on the 49ers offense. How do you feel about getting Kirk?
I was in a situation where I needed someone, and even though Kirk is going as like wide receiver like 28 or 29, I see him playing a lot of slot this year with the addition of Calvin Ridley. I think Kirk benefited in the outside last year, but I can see him, taking some high quality receptions at the slot position, and I see the Jags doing more in the passing game last year and an improving offense. So yeah, I like Kirk here. Do I think he'll be the same as last year? No, but I thought at that position, I thought that was a pretty good
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah.
The more I thought about it, the more I probably should have taken Chris Godwin, but we live and we learn. Christian
I,
Kirk, like Calvin Ridley could tear his ACL, and Christian Kirk is right back there. So it is what it is.
Shit happens in the NFL. I always for some same with Bobby getting DeAndre Hopkins. I knew that Connor would get Chris Godwin.
Yep.
I knew Bobby would do something to disappoint me, and of course he picked James Cook right when I was going to pick him.
Again.
I like getting Antonio Gibson. I think he's a wild card. He's on a contract year, somebody who's proven that they can be a top 10 running back. We'll just see if it happens. I like getting Charbonnet, but it was a little too soon. I wish I would have just drafted Dallas Goedert.
I
Uh,
actually, I actually have that in my notes. I said I think he's going to be good at like eventually, but I think he was more
yeah.
of a ninth round guy.
I wasn't sure when people would pick him, especially Connor, but I don't think he had interest, and I really fucked myself in tight end that way, so that sucks. The rest of this round was interesting. It was when everybody started drafting quarterbacks again. Didn't see Derek Carr getting drafted like at all, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad backup to have. And Bobby's team was already fucking done, so it's like whatever.
Yep. You can't
Um,
keep all the players.
yeah, no shit. Um, And then just kind of jumping ahead, Michael already put Jordan Love on the trade block and is saying, "Hey, this guy's so good, I don't need him, and you should trade for him." Um, so we'll see how that works out for him. But I like Jordan Love. If he was available late, I would have drafted him, but somebody already got him.
Yeah, I actually do like Jordan Love, but every year Michael has a player that he's like, hey, I don't need him, but you should definitely have him
Yeah.
because he'll do good for you,
Mm.
and you'll just give me a pick instead.
Well, he dropped Justin Fields last year, so make sure if he drops one of his quarterbacks. You swoop them up.
Yeah.
Um,
And circling back though to my Stafford pick, I trusted Finley with my life. I've been texting Finley for about 2 weeks now, or not 2 weeks, but I think about like week and a half, maybe 2 weeks before the draft, and we even talked. I think last I saw him at my wedding or something like that. We were drunkenly talking about the NFL draft before I was getting married, and Finley was like, "No, just give me three guys. Out of one of them, I've done my research. I will pick them." And what ended up happening was, oh, my pick came on. Oh, Finley, I want this guy, and the whole league was like, "No, we're not doing that. We're picking that regardless of what Finley says." So that sucked. I would have rather done a shot. I was actually pretty drunk or pretty warm around the edges about this point because I think I'm what? I think I'm four. I should be. Yeah, I think I'm four in at this point, and
mhm.
this pick was worth a shot, and my next pick, and like 2 rounds later, was worth a shot. I was like, okay, I don't have to do a shot. Finley's got me. So that sucks. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, Andrew, you had all I will say is you had your fate in your own hands and you gave it to Nick Finley. That's all I'll say.
Never again. I
um,
can't.
but
Oh
going
wait.
going through these, Khalil Herbert I thought was a really good pick. Crowded backfield, but I think he'll be good, especially early on. Goddard was a great pick. I wish it was mine. I think Montgomery is kind of a steal in the eighth round, honestly. Like
Mhm.
he doesn't even need to be great. It's like, but I mean, in that offense, it's like we saw Jamal Williams, who I don't think is as good as David Montgomery, go insane. So
Yeah.
I think even if he isn't that good, I think he'll have a decent season. Um,
He may as well take over that role Jamal Williams
yeah,
had.
yeah, I
Just
hope
go
so. That'd be
pick the
super
well.
cool for me. Um, yeah, drafted. Bobby got Niners defense, and I got Dalton Kincaid. I just drafted Kincaid because I was like, fuck it. Out of all the other tight ends, I'm just drafting the Bills one.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, for me here, Addison was just like, well, I'm just gonna draft talented rookies basically. Um, and then it was interesting going through the rest of it. I don't really like Pittman, but he ended up getting dropped anyway. Dalvin Cook is now on Thomas's
Oh,
team because he just
great.
couldn't resist. Uh, Tyler Lockett was a good pick, I think. Just a solid guy, especially with Geno. Not bad.
Yeah. The
Um,
the stack.
oh yeah, the overrated Seahawks stack. Um,
Overrated.
uh, Mike Williams is a good one. Then once he gets hurt, Finley can dump him, so that's good.
Yeah.
Um, Brock Purdy will be interesting this year just to see if he's any good. Um,
I'm glad someone picked up Big Brock Cock. Last year, he did pretty well for me. I think just anyone in that Niners offense will just do good.
I put
Sam,
$5 on Sam Darnold, comeback player of the year.
so you're thinking Brock Purdy gets injured and Sam Darnold.
I've got more to say on that later, but yeah.
Uh,
So
uh,
and
I
if
like
yeah,
his pick on Johnson. I know I cut you off
no, you're good.
there. I think that this could be Thomas's like boom wide receiver. He's always needed one. I mean, I know he just drafted two, but I do think Johnson there could be his next favorite target with Justin Herbert. So, depending on if if Mike Williams gets hurt, Johnson is right there. He's a big guy. In my opinion, probably the best receiver coming out of the draft. So, I like Thomas reaching there for a really young rookie wide receiver on a great contract.
Yep. And yeah, any thoughts on kind of these last three rounds? I know these are kind of a lot of people's throwaway picks. I thought drafting John Dotson was good. I think he's a solid receiver.
Yeah, no, I see the boom in him as well. He did good in the preseason, but again, he plays for the Commanders, so there's only so much he can do. I really like a player that I think will see playing time here is George Pickens. Like I said earlier, again, he is a flashy wide receiver and makes those big plays, but I think on an improving offense, Pickens could be a great wide receiver for Jacob. He doesn't need to play him having, you know, Amon St. Brown and Justin Jefferson, but hey, could be a decent trade piece later.
Yeah.
Who knows? But other than that, pretty standard. Only 4 defenses were drafted this year, and only 5 kickers. So teams still have to get their players and drop a couple guys. I know you, Connor, and Bobby have to drop a couple players, and I'll be looking to see who you guys drop. One last thing, you start talking. I do like Zay Flowers actually, and
Yeah.
I see the potential in him, and Ravens gave him a lot of money to do so.
Yeah, I like Zay Flowers a lot. I also like Addison, so I don't really know who I am gonna drop, which sucks. But
Well,
yeah,
I'll take him off your hands if you feel any better.
I'd rather die. I'll just keep them all. I'll take whatever fine or penalty there is. I'll take it to the grave. But
All
yeah,
right.
that was the draft. I think honestly, it's anybody's game still. That being said, so even since this draft, there've been a couple of trades. The huge trade between Jacob and Michael is Deshaun Watson and Garrett
Rock.
Wilson for who? Javonte Williams and Jared Goff and a third round.
And a third round pick.
That's right, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Which I don't know. For me, it's just that I think Deshaun Watson is still Deshaun Watson, and I don't know if he'll. I think his floor is lower than it was before. It's like, but he still has more potential than any white quarterback.
Mhm.
So, so I mean that's just so I think it's limiting, and superstar quarterbacks are what separate people in this league, and I think Jacob gave up that potential for other players who don't necessarily, in my opinion, improve his team. Amon-Ra St. Brown is really good, but I think Garrett Wilson is probably just as good, potentially. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers.
I like this. So on the counter of that, I like this trade for Jacob. He got a lot of heat actually afterwards.
Most of
Everyone,
that, I just said a lot of that because it was funny.
yeah, and Connor's like, yeah, I don't like that trade personally at all either. I
Yeah.
know I put out a poll, and looks like Michael actually has the votes for who won that trade. But I think Jacob just didn't like the agony of wondering, is Deshaun Watson ever going to come back and be Deshaun Watson? So I think he just wanted to
Yeah.
get rid of um, I can
And
eat. I mean, just like last year, Jared Goff outscored Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's possible he could do it again. And Garrett Wilson being on that 1 year contract, and Amon being on like an 8 or 7 year contract, whatever it is. Those 2 players could be wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 6. Like so, but then I think having that extra third round pick and Javonte Williams, I think swayed Jacob to get rid of Deshaun. Um,
yeah, I know he,
which
he, he needed a running back, so I think Javonte Williams was that extra piece, and then the third round pick just in case Javonte Williams is like hurt still. And I don't mind taking more picks away from Michael. That could be a nice trend that we just kind of continue with. Yeah. So, although it scared the shit out of me. So Jacob sent me like a trade offer, and then I declined it. And right as I hit declined, I got a notification that a trade had been completed. And I was like,
Ooh.
"Oh fuck!" And I like rushed. I was like, "What the fuck is it? Oh my god!" So thank God it wasn't that. But so that was wild. But one of the last things we could do here is do some power rankings here for the season. Now the draft and some trades have happened. Um, let's I'll just do mine, then you do yours. How about that?
Yeah, and we're smart fellas. I think we'll have some pretty similar ones, and I'll just mention the ones that are different.
Up top, I have Connor, and biggest difference is just two top tier quarterbacks. Like, uh, that's really it. Everything else is pretty even, I think. Second is Bobby. Third, I have Jacob. Fourth, so this is a tough one, and for me in this like 4 or 5 was depending on who is healthy. But fourth, I have you, because I think your team is fairly solid, and you have the best running backs, which sets you apart from myself, which I have at 5. If Cooper Kupp was healthy, I would have switched it, really more just cuz. But Cooper Kupp is not healthy, nor is Joe Burrow. So I have myself at 5, and then I have Finley at 6, Michael at 7, Thomas at 8.
No freaking way. No freaking way. Those are probably backwards. Those are my exact power rankings.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
It is done. I mean, so my whole thing is I was different. So I also struggled with Finley's team, my team, and your team. You can easily switch out those positions. The reason that I put myself ahead of you was Cooper Kupp. That definitely went into the decision making. I think out of both of our quarterbacks, you have the best one, and I had to weigh that into the decision and all that jazz. But us ranking ourselves higher than Finley probably just means that Finley has a better team than both of us. I mean, I know he's at a tough situation with Jonathan Taylor not being able to play and Kyler Murray not being able to play. So, however, I think Finley drafted really well, and I
Yeah.
think that. But that's the only reason I put Finley lower than us was because he has that JT situation in Kyler Murray. Any other year, I'd have Finley easily in the top 4, which is just unfortunate.
I don't think anybody drafted poorly, to be honest. I think that there are some teams who are short on certain positions, like Michael's short on receivers, um, Jacob's short on running backs. He just got one more, which is why he did that trade. Um, but yeah, I don't think anybody drafted poorly. I thought everybody was kind of brought their A game a little bit. Who do you have in the toilet bowl?
I think I have. Well, okay. I guess this is technically a hot take, but I have Michael and Thomas battling it out in the toilet bowl. Now I know that won't happen because Michael always makes the playoffs, so I don't know why I'm putting him in the toilet bowl. But
He, yeah, he,
judging based on I just his draft situation wasn't the best, and I think man, I just think his keepers could be good, but also have a lot of uncertainty. Um, so that's why I put Michael down there. He missed out on a lot of good players leading up to his first pick, and I think that's what really hurt him. He did get Deshaun Watson and Garrett Wilson, so I guess you can say he got a first round pick essentially. But he had to give up Amon for it, so that's why I
yeah,
have.
yeah. I have myself versus Thomas in the toilet
Ooh,
bowl, just because bad things happen to both of us, unless we win. But that's just the deal. I think Thomas's team has the lowest floor, and I think my team has the lowest luck, as it seems lately. I have Thomas losing and me getting 7th place again, as is tradition around here. But
honestly, if we're going tradition, then I'm gonna be somewhere near the toilet bowl because it's named after myself.
the Shard Bowl is what I meant to say. But one thing on Michael, so Michael's team, sorry, before that, who do you have as your winner?
Oh, okay. So this year, I have a repeat of last year. I have Bobby and Jacob in the championship, and I think Jacob gets his vengeance and justice for last year's asterisks. So I think that this is Jacob's year, and it's kind of weird saying that because I think not only did Jacob not really get the players he wanted early in the draft. Just having Patrick Mahomes and Justin Jefferson just sets him apart from everybody in the league, just automatically. And whether he's lucky or whether he's just good at fantasy football, I mean, every year, I think no matter what Jacob keeps, as long as he has Justin Jefferson and Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be top 3 in fantasy just going forward until he gets rid of one of those two guys.
Yeah. See, I know it's interesting. Even like look back at the World Cup year in 2020. Jacob's team won like 2 fucking games. And since it was a World Cup year, he ended up going through the playoffs and winning. But
Yeah.
I have so literally what I wrote is Connor if his quarterbacks are healthy, because the last forever it seems that his quarterbacks just aren't healthy. Lamar Jackson gets hurt. If Lamar Jackson and Hurts are healthy, it's Connor. Uh, if there is no God, then it'll be Michael. Uh, I've deemed Michael the team of the apocalypse. He's got Deshaun Watson, alleged sex criminal, He has Kyle Pitts, who's like the stain of the fantasy universe, for tight ends especially. He has Tua, who sucks, but just happens to have two of the fastest wide receivers ever. He's got James Conner, who's just an old, broken down piece of shit, but on his team is going to do great. Ask Thomas about him last year. He's got Deebo Samuel, who a lot of people think is just fucking done and won't do well, but since he's on Michael's team, he's going to do great. And he has Michael Thomas, who's just old and busted. It's like, but guess what? He's going to fucking light it up and stay healthy now because he's on Michael's team.
I agree. If Michael wins, no, honestly, if Michael even makes the playoffs, there is no God.
There's no God.
There is no God if Michael makes the playoffs.
So that's a little spicy. You got any hot takes for us?
Yeah, I have a couple hot takes. I'm gonna throw this one out there. I think that man, this isn't really a hot take now that I'm looking at it. I think Devontae Smith will be a top 3 wide receiver.
That's a little hot. I don't think that would be quite the season for him.
Yeah.
So he does better than AJ Brown.
I think he has AJ Brown's year last year.
Wild. That would be something. I hope
that he's on the team because that's the last thing I want. But I really like Devontae Smith this year. Another hot take, which we kind of alluded to, I can see Madison going for 1,000 yards this year.
See, I don't see that as that hot. I think 1,000 yards for a starting running back is like the benchmark. If you said if you said like 1,400.
I guess so. An extra game as well. All right, I'll switch it up and I'll say 1,200. I think he goes for 1,200 yards this year.
Okay. Okay, so I've got probably my hottest take. I think Sam Darnold starts more games than Tua.
Ooh.
Brock is either gonna suck or he's gonna get hurt, and Tua is gonna get hurt. Sam Darnold will start more games than Tua. That's gonna happen.
And that goes into your bet that you're doing.
Comeback player of the year. Sam Darnold is the prince that was promised, not DeMar Hamlin.
Yeah. Right, prayers up for DeMar.
Yeah, prayers for DeMar. That's gonna be Jacob's team name, I think. Other hot take. Anthony Richardson earns more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns.
Yeah. Even though that's a hot take, I can absolutely see that. Especially now that no one has faith in Pittman, and now that Jonathan Taylor's out, he's going to have to carry that entire team.
He might just run for his life, and hopefully it's a lot of rushing touchdowns and a lot of passing touchdowns, but I don't think it's going to be a lot of passing touchdowns.
But I also think we are really not looking at how underrated the Colts offensive line still is. So,
I think they sucked ass last year, didn't they?
Well, wasn't Quinn? Don't they have Quinn Nelson? He's still on there. So
I hope so. I hope everybody was just hurt, and now everybody's happy and healthy again. All right, I have one more hot take though.
Go for it.
Jonathan Taylor wins Comeback Player of the Year in 2024.
I was actually going to say next year.
Next year. Meaning he's not going to do shit this year. I don't even know if he'll play this year. But then he comes back next year looking real fresh.
Yeah.
And wins Comeback Player of the Year. You heard it.
I have another bold prediction. Now that I'm looking at the draft board, I predict actually that Ramondre Stevenson will be a top 4 running back.
Boo.
Sorry.
I predict that my lineup last year will win the championship this year.
That's actually fact. What is there? Garrett Wilson was taken in the first round. Tony Pollard was
Garrett Wilson, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, fucking Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon.
Your team last year would have definitely won this year.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I think that's all
Right.
I think that's all we got for now.
I think we got enough content for the lads. Everybody, hope you liked our recap of the draft. Yeah, I think everybody brought their A game. Cam, nice. Thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for recording.
You got it, buddy. I'll talk to you guys later.
Hey, Football's back.
We're back, baby.
We're back, baby.